Story number 1. The Mirror That Remembers. When I moved into my new apartment, there was only one thing left behind by the previous tenant. A mirror, tall, old, framed in dark wood and nailed to the wall. At first I didn't think much of it until I noticed something strange. Every morning when I stood in front of it, my reflection looked slightly off. The timing was wrong. If I raised my hand, it hesitated for half a second, then followed. I thought it was just lighting. Maybe my mind playing tricks. But then, the reflection smiled when I didn't. That night I covered the mirror with a blanket. I didn't want to see it. But at around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of glass tapping, soft, rhythmic, coming from behind the blanket. When I pulled it down, my reflection was gone. The mirror showed my room, but empty. No bed, no me, just the room, perfectly still. Then, something moved in the reflection. A shadow stepped into frame. It looked like me, but older, tired, and it whispered, "Don't turn around." I froze. But of course, I did. Nothing behind me. When I looked back at the mirror, my reflection was back and smiling. The next morning I called the landlord to ask who'd lived there before me. He said, "No one's lived in that unit for 6 years. The last tenant disappeared." I asked, "Was anything left behind?" He paused, then said, "Just an old mirror. Now, every time I pass by it, I can still see my reflection smiling, even when I don't." Story number 2. Voices from Detention. I used to work as a night janitor at a middle school. Nothing special. Old hallways, flickering lights, the smell of floor wax and dust. But every Friday night I had to clean room 108, the detention room. That's where the weird stuff happened. It always started around midnight. The intercom would crackle to life, even though the system was supposed to be off. Sometimes I'd hear a voice say, "Mr. Reed, we're still here." I thought it was a prank until I realized none of the students knew my name. One night, I decided to record it. I set my phone on the desk, hit record, and waited. The air grew colder. The intercom hissed. Then a girl's voice said, "He locked the door." I stood frozen. The same voice whispered again, "He left us here." I turned to leave, but the door wouldn't open. The handle twisted and twisted, then stopped. From behind me came the sound of chairs scraping, dozens of them, moving slowly, forming a perfect circle around me. I couldn't see anyone, but I could hear breathing. Every exhale, soft, uneven, right beside my ear. The next thing I remember was waking up outside the classroom, my phone lying next to me. The recording was still running. When I played it back later, there was a voice at the end, a whisper. "You were supposed to stay." A week later, the principal called me into his office. He said, "I don't know what you think you heard, but that classroom has been closed for 20 years. He showed me a newspaper article, "Fire in Detention Room, 5 students trapped, room 108. That night I quit, but sometimes, when I pass a school at night, I swear I still hear them whispering my name." Story number 3. The Last Voicemail. 3 weeks after my brother died, I got a voicemail from his number. It was short, just a whisper, my name, and the sound of him breathing. At first, I thought it was a cruel prank, but when I called the number back, it went straight to voicemail, and the recording said, "This number is no longer in service." That night, I listened again. In the background of his whisper, I could hear something, a faint sound, like a heartbeat or footsteps. Then, right before the message ended, he said, "It's not over. The next day, I went to the phone company. They checked the record. The call came from his number, but there was no signal registered, no tower connection, just a timestamp. 2:13 a.m. That was the exact time of his death. Over the next few days, I got more messages, each one worse than the last. In one, he was crying. In another, he was screaming. The final one came a week later, just static, until a voice, not his, spoke. It said, "He's with us now." Then a long pause, and then, "You're next." I smashed my phone, got a new number, moved across town. No one had my contact info, except my mom. But last night, at 2:13 a.m., my new phone buzzed. One new voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. When I pressed play, I heard my mom's voice, whispering